I'll describe this latest poem, this latest sequence, latest book, Science Music, as a sequence, a lyric sequence, a before and after of parenthood. So the poems begin, I initially started writing it the day I was told I was going to be a parent. And I just kind of kept writing throughout that period. And then my child arrived, and then I started writing another poem. And then I just put them together and just kind of, I was interested in charting that idea of like how your writing changes when you become a parent. And I wanted the book to kind of document that in a way. And I think it kind of does, because the two sequences do have a different kind of modes and tones. There's a few more kind of formal poems in the second. So there's a sonnet, villanelle. There's like all these other things going on, but there's also a kind of concrete poetry happening, and I really wanted to make it a playful book, because something I was thinking a lot about was how to parent, how to be a good parent, how to make space for play and for your child to be who they are. And I actually think that transfers, or that idea transfers to being a poet as well. You want some of that child's imagination, that kind of play, which I attempted to sustain throughout the book. My big inspirations for this particular book, I would say at the front, two. First, I would say Lucille Clifton, because she was a poet who had, I believe, 6 or 7 children, and still wrote. And she writes these quite sparse lyric short poems, usually between 10 and 15 lines. And I remember her saying in an interview that becoming a parent has added to the aesthetic of how she writes. So she kind of writes between school runs, between naps, and so I wanted to lean into that as a mode, the poetic of the parent. The second big inspiration, I'd say, was William Wordsworth. And I'm really invested in the Wordsworth idea of the capital N nature that he puts in his poems, and the kind of question of where does human nature begin and end, and when does the natural world begin and end. He kind of melds them. Find a need almost to reclaim Wordsworth. I think he's actually quite a misunderstood poet for a fault that isn't his own. Just kind of his reputation and the way that he's seen as this kind of almost like colonial poet, like part of some kind of colonial project. But when you read him in his own words, in his letters, in his lectures, he advocated for poetry for people. Actually, he was a big advocate at his time for poets, to incorporate like kind of everyday speech in poetry. And so that's also something that happens throughout the book. There's lots of little overheard things or misheard things, or things that have been said to me that end up on the page. So yeah, Lucille Clifton, William Wordsworth. I didn't expect it, but I'm so chuffed to be nominated. One of the strange synchronicities of being nominated at this point in my life is I now live in Margate. So every day when I leave Margate, I walk past the bench where T.S. Eliot wrote that section of the Wasteland. On Margate sands, I connect nothing with nothing. And I think about that line every day. And this idea of living in this place, which T.S. Eliot went to recover, he went to heal. And I've gone to Margate, in a way to reclaim myself, to reclaim my peace and my mind. And it's really worked out for me. So it feels like being nominated at this time feels significant, feels like the universe has said, all right, you've landed. Some of my favorite books, poetry collections that I've read in the last year are on this list. So that's the win. I love that. Again, the idea of poetry as a kind of company, as a kind of as a kind of journey that you share with other poets, a tradition that is shared in different ways, because there's such a range of poets and styles on this shortlist. So I feel particularly emotional to see my friend Boyega Odobanjo in there, because we were working on each other's books around the same time, and we were talking about them, and I know it's something he would have loved, and so sharing that with him as well is really significant. And then of course the judges, like I don't know how honest I can be about this, but like I know that those judges they're not blowing smoke. They really know how to read a poem, and they really have deep and serious opinions and stances and ideas about poetry that I really respect. So that's what I mean. In every area of the nomination, of the platform that's given me, I feel so good about the way it's all aligned. So I'm very proud.